Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. We're in a different location today.
Yes, we are.
We are? How do you feel about it?
I'm liking it. It's vibey.
It's vibey. So we have this place at our apartment where we could do videos, or we could just collab.
Definitely not the purpose of it, but we found
Really?
that we could use it for that.
I'm sure it can be.
I'm sure it can be too.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be. It echoes, but I think it works. It works. But it doesn't echo too much. But today's podcast, very basic in a way, talking about communication. Karita, wife, why am I making today about communication?
Based on what I was told, it had to do with a little lapse in communication you did earlier today during our team meeting.
I guess so. I was trying to tell Karita that I did not want to talk. No, I'm just kidding.
Non-verbally.
No. So essentially, we have these meetings it fluctuates. First, it was every Tuesday. Then it was like Friday. But I think we skipped Friday, so we made it Sunday.
Something happened. Oh, I went with, I had something to do Friday. We seem
Oh,
to have
yeah,
a lot
with
of
your
things to do
friend.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry guys. That was probably... I'm tired. But we had something to do on Friday, so we had to switch it to Sunday. During we call them our team meetings. Mm-hmm. Because of our team meeting, the objective and what Karita has mentioned before is that undivided attention is super important.
I haven't mentioned that. That's what our therapist mentioned. Like, this isn't something I came up with.
Did she release? I don't remember.
Yeah, she says that.
I understand the importance of it. I just don't remember her saying, hey, undivided attention.
Yeah, the point was to have undivided attention and talk about things going on in your relationship.
Yeah.
Uninterrupted.
So I slipped up, got on my phone, was just swiping left and right. Wasn't doing anything on it, but the objective was to not have my phone. Mm-hmm. Right? So during our communication, I had a lapse in judgment.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I've learned, though, that you're a fidgety person.
Yeah.
It's been rare, I will never say never, but it's been rare that you just look at me while I'm talking. Mm. You're almost always doing something. Because even when you got off your phone, you started playing with your rings.
Yeah. So knowing that I'm a fidgety person, do you hold that against me when I'm not...
No, I
giving you my undivided attention?
You're not always that way. Sometimes I feel like maybe there's something on his mind, because there are times you're not fidgety at all.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be at the wrong moments, but I have my moments, you know.
You definitely do.
I will say I try not to. But some are a little bit. Thank you. Okay. The lamp was on and it was kind of heating up, like we were on stage or something.
Yeah. Don't need it anyways.
No, I don't think we need it. But yeah, so I'm learning. A lot better than what I used to be, but I can still be better. Mm-hmm. So, well, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Let's see if you know my code.
So, being that today is about communication, I wanted to preface with a mission statement.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm just kidding. Not a mission statement. But communication is crucial in many areas of life, especially in situations where emotions, expectations, and perspectives clash. What proceeds from this is going to be maybe 7 points of conversation where communication is apparent in all these different ways. And I wanted to pick your brain to really see what your perspective is and kind of go from there. Of course, I'll chime in from here and there.
As I say, this is not a picking my brain podcast.
Yeah.
Your brain.
But I will say doing this the last 3 or 4 times with you helped me understand you more.
Interesting. You didn't understand me? Or you just realized that you didn't understand?
I understood you. However, I know
there's what you've discovered.
Yeah, there's more to discover. And I think what you've also mentioned was that I don't ask you questions enough. So this is a time where...
Which people listening to the podcast will be shocked because you asked me a ton of questions.
I know.
Well, and I asked you to ask me questions. You're like, I'm blank.
I literally get all my questions out in the podcast. So it covers for 6 or 7 days. Yeah. So let's talk about conflicts and disagreements.
Yes.
I think these are important. Some people may think not having conflict or not having disagreements is paramount or it's the goal. I disagree. I disagree.
The irony.
The irony?
Yeah.
Why is that so ironic?
Because you're disagreeing about not having conflicts and disagreements. It's just funny.
Oh, I see. I thought you were pointing out something.
No, that wasn't a dig or anything.
Okay, sure. But yeah, I think it's super important to have conflict and disagreements. As long as it's mature, I'm totally understanding that we are not going to agree all the time. I'm big on conflict resolution, and I like to be able to resolve conflict, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes I like to resolve it right away. But why'd you say,
I disagree.
Wow, okay. Our first conflict. Why do you disagree?
Because you're more of a processor. I wouldn't say you like to resolve it right away.
Excuse me, guys. But I still like to resolve. The thing is, I disagree with you.
Okay.
I do like to process things, but my steps in process and processing information is more so coming from a root of trying not to step on your toes. I resolve conflict very quick outside of marriage, but because it is our marriage, I try to make sure that I'm not doing something that's going to hurt my wife. So because of that, I think thoroughly and critically, or attempt to, before I voice myself. There's times I just want you to understand it, right? You heard me say this a lot. I want you to look outside of yourself. And I think that's why I'm a little bit slower in the relationship with resolving conflict. Even in that, though, I think I try to still resolve it fast. But yeah, I mean, I guess the question I would ask is, how do you usually approach conflict? Do you, for yourself, would you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're saying that I maybe avoid it for a longer period of time?
Or in general, I think you avoid conflict.
Really?
Yeah. You don't bring up things that are wrong that may cause conflict. I think we can agree on that, right?
Because I don't consider those conflicts.
What do you mean?
I don't consider some of the things that we have, that you would say that we are in conflict about. I don't consider them stringent or tasking enough to really talk about it. But there are things where I'm just like, okay, no, this is an issue, right? An issue to where we probably need to talk it out, or we need to go to therapy about it.
No, I just mean in general, like you don't bring up stuff that you're more hesitant to bring up stuff that bothers you than I am.
Because I let things go easily. I feel like I let things go more easily than you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's avoiding conflict sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily conflict, but I think you're avoiding it because you don't know what it could be.
I disagree.
This is a whole disagreement podcast.
I know, right? At least we're communicating about it. No, it's weird because I find this to be the case for a lot of people that maybe overthink. We try to decipher the things that are important. And a lot of the things that I could be up in arms about, I decide to let go because there's so many other things that involve my that require my attention. I'll just put it that way. So, yeah, I disagree with that, man. I'm interested. I'm very interested in that because I never heard you phrase it in a way that I'm scared of conflict.
I'm not scared. I said avoid.
Avoiding conflict.
Yeah.
Would you say that you avoid conflict more than me?
No.
Really?
Because I'm still trying to get to the point where I was a conflict fear for so long, and I don't want it to get to the point where I'm scared to bring stuff up in my marriage. So even when it doesn't go as well, or when it turns in way bigger than I expected, I still bring it up because I'm like, well, that was something that kind of bothered me. Would you like me to provide an example?
Huh?
Would you like me to provide an example?
Sure.
So I feel like and this wasn't like a big thing at all, which is kind of my point, but you brought up once, you were like, man, and I forget the exact way you brought it up, so I'm paraphrasing all of this, but you brought up how you didn't really like our dishwash holder. You were like, man, it just gets too moldy. It was like a plastic one I bought from a dollar store, I think a 99-cent only or something. And you were just like, I really don't like this thing. Is it fine if we just stop using it and just use this little drying mat that we have that kind of absorbs the water? And I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like, I had tried to clean the moldiness or whatever that was on it, but I understood that it was annoying, so no big deal. We won't use that anymore. I put it off to the side. I didn't throw it away immediately because I thought we might need it because it holds a lot of dishes. In a similar way, I thought I brought up the suitcase on the bed, thinking like it's not a big thing. It's just like something I don't like. And I felt like that ended up being way more of a thing than like the dishwasher thing. And I think in that way we handle conflict differently.
So in the instance, so basically you're saying when I was needing something from you, you're like, okay, sure. But when you were needing something from me, I was like...
Combative?
I guess you can call it combative, but I feel like in the same way, I brought up that I didn't like the water on the mat thing, but then I also brought up that the suitcase on the bed was also contradicting and kind of ridiculous to me too. But I brought them both up though.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like I disagreed with it and I brought that up.
You disagree with the
suitcase on the bed thing?
But how'd you do that with this dishwasher thing or the dish holder?
That I brought to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you brought something to me and I didn't avoid the conflict. I just disagreed with you.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is the time where you avoided the conflict. I'm saying that we handle it differently.
Oh, I didn't even know that was... I thought the thing was I avoided conflict.
No, I do think you avoided conflict, but this is a different topic. Sorry, I switched gears.
You did switch gears.
Okay. I was just saying how when you bring up conflict to me, I handle it differently. And I was saying how I don't want to get to the point of avoiding it because those two situations did go differently. Like, I thought it was going to be like such a quick, easy, like, oh, okay, no suitcase in the bed. But it ended up being quite a bit more than that.
Okay. I think I was coming from a place of talking about avoiding conflict and how I didn't avoid that.
Yeah, no, you didn't avoid that. You definitely dove into it both feet.
I sure did. So, again, do you think I avoid conflict more than you or you more than me? And I thought you were going to give an example of that.
Oh, no. I think in general, to give an example of that, I think in general, when we have our team meetings, like we just talked about, you kind of pride yourself in being like, I'm a simple guy. I don't have anything wrong in our relationship. And I think in your mind, you think our team meetings still, even though I've said it, our therapist has said it, it's not a time to air your grievances. It's just a time to connect about your relationship. In your mind, you've committed to memory. This is a time where I share what's wrong with our relationship. So every single time it's your turn in the team meeting, you're like, I don't have anything wrong. I'm a simple guy. And I'm just like, that is not what this means. And it took me a while to get over that because I'm like, that's so rude because it makes it seem like I always have something to bring up, but I'm just doing what she told us to do. Just talking about the relationship in general.
If you could give a ratio between the times you aired your grievances
Mm-hmm.
compared to the times that we just talked in our meetings, what would that ratio be? And which one is which?
I would say the airing grievances is definitely higher than just talking. I would say maybe like 4 out of 5 times I'm airing grievances.
Knowing that, do you understand why I would think that this is an air your grievances time?
I understand that, but you make me have a lot of grievances.
Okay. No, for real, but do you understand why I would?
I see what you're saying.
Because that's a very high number. You
do
said
as
4
I
out of
say.
5 times is in all of our meetings.
I can see what you're saying, and you're saying basically like, do as I say, not as I do. So even though I'm saying it's not a time to air your grievances, you can use that time for that. But I'm not saying that's a purpose of it necessarily. So what I did start doing was that I didn't air the grievances in the meeting. I would do it other times, not in the meeting.
Okay. Well, with that ratio, would you say that you're still 4 out of 5 times still
A
airing
grievance
your...
is a huge word.
You
I
said
did use
this.
the word, yes, but I'm just
this.
saying, like, it's just a big word. But I'll admit I have more grievances than you, but I think you pride yourself on not having more, for lack of a better word, grievances.
No, I think the true reality is I don't have a whole bunch of grievances, and you do. Would you? Well, I don't want to put those words
No,
in.
you might be. I'm not going to argue on that.
Yeah.
You might be right.
And I mean, would you say your grievances or your need to voice your grievances stems from things that were a part of your life before me and with me, I guess?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Like still trying to get to the swing of marriage?
Knowing that, do you have any desire to make it not that way? Or is this just a part of your life?
I think that's the reason I'm airing the grievances. Like, it's something that I don't really see. I don't like the way that it's going, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
You didn't like the way it was going for the relationships that you had outside of marriage.
No, just in general. Like, not necessarily comparing it to anything. I'm just saying, I didn't like the way something was going, so I'm like, oh, let me bring this up. So I'm not years from now like, you had me do this for 15 years. And I'm like, I could have just brought it up when I first noticed it.
Do you believe you do that in all your relationships?
I can't really speak to that because this is like the longest relationship I've ever had.
I mean, not just romantic relationships.
I see what you're saying. No, you're making a point right now.
I'm asking you questions.
No, I don't. There's a lot of things that I'm ignoring in other relationships. But in the same fact as you, which I think is the reason you can say, I'm able to resolve conflict in all my other relationships so quickly. I think we're able to do that because we don't put as much stock in other relationships as we do in this one. Because we didn't make a covenant with other people. We aren't stuck with other people for the rest of our lives. We don't live with other people. And I think you just put a higher expectation might not be the word, but you put higher value on a marriage than you do like any other relationship.
Yeah. I agree.
There's conversations we both should have had with people in our family that we have, you can either say avoided or just have not had yet.
For the time you've known me and the time I've known you, do you think you've had more of those conversations with your family, or do you think I've had more of those conversations with my family?
I think we both tried.
Okay. What else? I think your ability to let things go in other relationships outside of your marriage
It's better.
is a good thing. I would like for that to be possible in marriage as well. Because you seem to think it's, well, let me not put words in your mouth. Do you think it's a negative thing not to, or to let things go?
It is not a negative thing to let things go.
Do ratio again, in marriage, How many times do you let things go versus how many times you don't let things go?
I would say 50-50. But I know you can't see that because all you see is what I don't let go.
No, I was just asking you a question.
But that's my
But then you
answer.
see 50-50. Okay. Which one do you want more of in a relationship?
Neither.
So you don't want to let things go, but you don't want to. You are something else. See, this is what happens when I ask questions.
That's why you don't do it.
This is why I don't do it.
No, I do want to let things go more, but I would say it's definitely increased. The more we have these conversations about letting things go, I'm like, okay. But then I get back in the book we're reading now about like just thinking. I notice how thinking too much can make me hold on to things and feel like I have to bring it up. And if I weren't to ruminate on it, then maybe I wouldn't bring it up because it's not that big of a deal, possibly.
Question. Scenario, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not scenario, but a series of thoughts and thinking.
Okay.
If you look at two people, one person on a hill, the other person below them, who's going to have the harder time? Someone pulling someone down or someone trying to pull someone up?
We saw this on a video.
We?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Someone who's going to have the harder time?
Yeah.
The person pulling someone up.
Okay.
It's easy to pull someone down.
If we're using this as an analogy to demonstrate letting go or making sure that you say what's on your mind, which one is the letting go or which one is the pulling down and which one is the lifting up?
You're saying it's harder to bring something up?
I'm asking you a question. Well, I'll answer that question. I think it's harder to pull someone up. It's easier to pull someone down.
No, are you saying it's harder to bring something up than to let it go? That's what you're comparing it to?
No.
Oh.
My comparison, my question to you, the first question was, is it easier to pull someone down or lift someone up? And
Yes.
your answer was?
Lift someone up.
Lift someone up. The follow-up to that was, if we were making the comparison between that and letting something go or bringing something up, which one's the harder thing to do?
That I think it depends on the person.
For you.
For me?
And ideologically, like what is...
Personally, I think it's hard for me to let things go.
Let things go.
Because
And
it's
that
just
would
not
be...
my human nature.
And letting things go would be pulling someone up or pulling someone down.
I don't know. I really don't know. Because I guess when I think of the pulling someone up, pulling someone down scenario, I think of encouraging or browbeating someone almost.
Why are those two extremes for you?
I'm just thinking about the video that we saw, so maybe I'm over-analyzing it.
I don't know if I saw the video you saw.
Oh, it was either on TikTok or YouTube, but it was a man, he put a girl in a chair and told her to lift someone up.
Maybe we did see the same.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw it together.
I think you were watching it and I was looking at your phone.
Yo, well, I mean, regardless of that, right?
Yes.
Or within that,
Yes.
we understand that it's easier to pull someone down than to lift someone up, right? In that scenario, which one is pulling something down and which one is lifting up for you?
And that's what I'm not really sure, but if you're saying which one's harder, it would be harder for me to let something go.
So letting something go will be the pulling up.
Yeah,
Okay. Why do you view it that way?
because it's harder for me.
Why is it harder for you?
Because, like, in my mind, it doesn't seem like that big of a, like, not all the time, but in my mind, sometimes the things I bring up, they either don't seem like that big of a deal and I should just address them now, or they seem like they are that big of a deal and I don't want to be having to struggle through this through the entire marriage. Like, at the very least, as my partner, I think I owe it to you to know that something bothers me.
Why do you think it's going to bother you throughout marriage?
Because it bothers me at that moment.
We read a book recently that talked about thoughts and thinking, right? In comparison to what you just said, as far as you think it's going to bother you throughout your whole marriage, knowing what you know about thoughts and thinking, are you able to just have that thought and not think it?
Technically, yes, I'm capable of doing that.
Why is it hard for you? Or is it hard for you?
Yeah, it is hard. The book is about how hard it is. Yes, it's hard.
Is it an achievable thing?
It's an achievable thing, but then also, as someone in a relationship with someone, even for you, I would not want you just not thinking about something. I would rather you just, even if it's small or big or something, I would like to know what things bother you. Yeah. I don't want you just letting it go.
Would you say that when things really do bother me, I voice them? Like really, really bother me?
Trying to think of sometimes, I don't know. An example I'm thinking of is, if I could give another example.
Sure.
I used to make you smoothie bowls. And I could eat smoothie bowls every day for the rest of my life. And because I make so many smoothie bowls, I like added to them all the time. Like I added a new granola, a new chocolate sauce. Like I was always doing something different. And every time I gave you a smoothie bowl, it tasted a little bit different. But every time I gave them to you, you also were like, this is really good. Until finally, like years down the line, you're like, man, this does not taste the same. And I'm just like, well, yeah, it doesn't. I've been innovating it for the past 4 years. And so trying to figure out what exactly the thing was, that was so hard navigating back to what you didn't like in my smoothie bowl. That actually took quite a while. And we finally figured out you don't like protein powder. But yeah, I wish you had told me at the very first, when I first started innovating, like, this is different, but I kind of like the old one better. And you never said that. Probably because you let it go.
No, not that. One, I didn't notice all the changes you were making because I was not visibly seeing those changes being made. I think I may have been your guinea pig.
You definitely were.
Right. The other thing is, when I did notice something different, I did say it. Because I didn't notice the things that were different prior.
But it was such a random time because I've been giving you protein powder smoothie bowls for so long.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm not even sure if that's what it was.
Once I took it out, you were like, this is perfect.
It was really good. It was perfect, but the way you're describing it, and now that I know that you changed so much in it.
I changed a lot in it.
Yeah, it could have been something else and I did not know. Maybe it's the protein powder that makes it more resemble something that I've had previously, but I don't even know if that's the thing.
I know it made it lighter, and you didn't like how light the color was. So that's one of the things. And it does definitely change the texture.
Yeah.
And you didn't like the texture.
Yeah. But again, even with that, that's something that I brought up. You know, when I don't like something.
But I think you brought it up after years of letting it go. That's what my point is.
And I'm saying I disagree with that because for the years that you've done it, I didn't notice a difference until the most recent time that I did notice. That's when it bothered me, right? So, but very, very, very interesting. We stayed on that topic for
we did.
a minute.
We needed it.
I guess the next question is related to expressing needs and boundaries, right? Why?
You can't do that. You need to let it go. You don't get boundaries.
Did I hurt you in some way?
You didn't.
Lord, man. Without clear communication, one person may feel neglected or overwhelmed. What are some ways that I cannot make you feel neglected or overwhelmed, but as a person in a relationship, you can still tend to my needs, which are something that's different than what yours are?
What are your needs?
What are my needs? Are you able to answer the question without?
No, I'm not. That's kind of my point, is that you don't have needs. That's the struggle.
My needs is to keep things simple, right?
It's so vague.
I disagree. I feel like that I feel that like that specific thing can be applied to everything, and if you could apply it to everything, that's what I'm wanting.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Can you elaborate on it? I don't know. So, what was your initial question? Am I what?
What are some ways for me?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some ways that I can make sure that you're not feeling neglected or overwhelmed, while simultaneously having you understand what my needs are? Given that my needs is just making things simple, not overcomplicating things,
Mm-hmm.
and
I think that's probably our biggest struggle in our relationship is because I think you naturally see me as complicating things when I'm like bringing something up and you're constantly trying to keep things simple. That's usually where our rifts come.
yeah, and it's so funny because even when we went to therapy, our therapist said this should work.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Our huge differences in like
Yeah.
human nature, which
but-
is encouraging.
which is very encouraging, and I think to a certain extent it's just like
Are you sure?
not even that, because I'm sure of it. I'm sure that
No,
this
I'm
can
sure
work.
of it, yeah.
That's why I married you, because I was like, this could really work. This
Yeah.
could be beneficial.
Yeah. But just sometimes in those moments, there's been times for both of us where we're talking about something and you're like, you really see this totally different than me. It's like, yep, we are not seeing eye to eye on this at all.
And so,
And that's just like 3 months, 4 months into marriage. Like,
yeah,
imagine we get 10 years down the line when we bring kids into this thing.
yeah,
So we already know there's things we don't disagree with about kids.
right. And then
That'll be fun.
even when it comes to that and bringing things up,
Yeah.
my whole ideology, I guess you could say, when it comes to the future,
Mm-hmm.
is that in the future, I think bringing things up all the time
Mm-hmm.
is way easier than letting things go, which is why I was feeling like bringing things up that could be easily let go is more so a pulling down because it's a lot easier. But letting things go in the long term
It's harder.
is harder.
Mm-hmm.
However, once we master it,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a lot more beneficial because you're pulling someone up.
So, question. Let's say you have a child. Would this be your same theory to your child?
It would.
So if your child brings up, like, Daddy, you hurt my feelings when you did this, would your response be, I understand I hurt your feelings, but you really need to let more stuff go?
No,
Or what would be the talk about
it
that?
wouldn't.
Okay.
It wouldn't. My talk with my children would
Daughter.
be
Let's
daughter.
frame it, 'cause that's where you're really going to struggle.
No, I would like my daughter to understand, and I feel like that's a different scenario.
Because it's a daughter.
No, because it's dealing in the realm of communication.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hurt someone's feelings in that way, I think it is important to say, oh, like if it's I genuinely hurt your feelings and there's no denying it and there's no, stepping away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with marriage. If I hurt your feelings, I'm gonna apologize or do something to correct it. Just like me breaking your water bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I apologize and I did try to rectify, but
Try to rectify is a good way to put it. Just
Whatever.
kidding.
so I am going to try to do things to help out.
Yes.
And I don't want to make it seem like I'm not doing that in my marriage and I'm going to do it for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I would like my children to, even giving a scenario of like, my daughter comes to me and says, you hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
My response is going to be to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
But the other aspect of that is if apology is made or if it's not, are you able to keep moving on and just not
Be stagnant.
be stagnant? We read about that in the book as well. Overthinking. Pain and suffering. I caused you pain.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to suffer after that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if, as my child, my intentions is never to hurt you, but it's to pull you up.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So, I did ask you a question. What are some ways that I could...
But yeah, you've asked it like 3 times. I know I answered it. That was what I said. I think that's the thing we struggle with in our relationship.
Oh, okay. I do think we struggle with it. And I think my response to that was...
About the therapist, now she said...
Yeah. Or even doing the hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard thing is pulling up, which I equate to letting things go.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the long run, there's going to be so many things that we annoy each other with, things we disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're constantly bringing it up
Mm-hmm.
and forgetting the intentions of our partners and it's always for good,
Mm-hmm.
we're just going to weigh each other down with how many things that we hurt each other with.
For sure.
I am under the belief
You ultimately do have to let quite a few things go in marriage.
you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing that in the future. And I'm like, okay, we have to. We literally have to, because we're going to hurt each other on accident and on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So we got to find a way.
Yeah.
We got to find a way to let things go a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I came in the relationship trying to let things go more easily. Right? And I think to a certain extent, I myself could have came into this relationship saying, you know what? Screw it. Things happen to me in my life to where now I'm like, I need to bring this up every time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't view it that way.
I think you came in a relationship where you didn't bring stuff up, so you kind of are in that rhythm where you don't bring stuff up.
What do you mean?
Like in your upbringing, you didn't really like say, hey, that bothers me, or...
No,
Yeah.
I did say those things, but the result of those things
was negative.
Yes.
Yes.
But I didn't let that stop me from bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned from those situations is that you could bring something up, but inevitably you have to be able to get over it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is going to apologize the way you want them to.
No.
Even when they're your closest family, even though you're your siblings, some things you just have to get over.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned later in my life is that getting over it is not just suppressing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's literally letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
Letting it go. And I've gotten to the point in my life to where I was able to have conversations with my mom before she passed, and my dad, who's still living, and my siblings, and my siblings and everything. And I never let the things that happen in my life stop me or deter me from saying what's on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that there are some things that it's probably just not the best time for, but no, I've gotten better at it. And I think sometimes I try to, as the person who tries to lead a family,
Mm-hmm.
a wife, at times it seems like I'm trying to show you a way, and it's not always met with...
Embraced.
Yeah, it's not always embraced.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that too.
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent, I have to let that go and understand that we're going to have a lifetime.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lifetime. So...
I gotta embrace it now. I can embrace it year 20.
Gosh, please don't wait till then. But do you see my understanding of why I'm like, let it go, even though it's the hard thing to do by pulling? It's the pulling up.
Yeah.
It's literally the pulling up of someone. But the wrong word is complaining. But voicing your opinion about everything that happens that's wrong.
And I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't voice my opinion about everything that's wrong. But I do understand how, from your perspective, you can feel like that.
Yeah, because even from the point of when we're supposed to have our conversations, you said 4 out of 5 times it's bringing up something that you do not like.
That's over the course of our team meetings, because I started off very heavy with like grievances. But I would say the marriage, you even said, once we got married, I wasn't as, I think the word was like uptight. I forget the exact word. That sounds bad. But I was like more lenient on stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff didn't bother me as much.
Yeah. But side note, I still love you as my wife. I will always love you as my wife.
Yeah.
And even when we're having this conversation, this is not to grill you.
Yes.
Or anything like that. I look forward to getting old and gray with you. I look forward to listening to you and your perspective and changing in ways that are going to benefit both of us. And I'm sure you the same, right? So this isn't something, this is not me trying to like interrogate you.
Yes, go ahead.
Right? I love you.
Love you too.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, this is I know.
Listening and feeling heard. Many communication issues stem from not truly listening. Would you say that I'm a good listener? And if I'm not, in what ways can I be better at listening?
I think the only thing I've had to get used to with your listening style is the fidgety times. Because they're like when I listen to you, I'll just be like, oh, what happened with that? Like I'm asking questions and stuff. Your listening is you'll hear the whole thing. You'll be standing up the whole time. You might even be making a breakfast or something. Like you'll be doing stuff, but that's just like the way your mind works. And I'm just like, how is he listening? But I think that sometimes you just have to learn that, the theme that we're learning, I would say year one of marriage, is that we are not the same. And I think one of those things we have to learn is that we don't even listen the same. Just because that's how I listen doesn't mean that's the right way to listen. It may be the right way I prefer, but it doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong or that you're not listening to me.
Understanding that difference, that key difference between us. What I could do is try to do a better job at giving you my undivided attention.
You do a great job with that, by the way. I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Knowing that about me, I'm going to try to be better at that, continuously be better at that. What are some things that you could possibly do, understanding who I am naturally, and not necessarily trying to change it so much, but how could you possibly adjust?
No, that's what I was saying. Just understanding that you just listen differently.
Yeah.
So you may be moving and doing stuff, but that doesn't mean you're not listening.
Right.
And I've had to understand that.
Okay. I like that, and I appreciate that.
Same for me. What could I be doing better with listening?
That's the thing. I think you're a great listener.
I know at one point we talked about just because the way that I listen and the way that you tell stories, I have so many questions that I'm asking them during your story, but I've learned the times that that's appropriate and the times that that's not. There are very specific times. So I'll never forget, like you told me that before, like pretty early in our relationship, but you told me one time, you're like, wow, I'm so happy you didn't ask me any questions during that. And I was like, you don't like that? That's just the way I listen.
Your listening sucks. Never mind. But no, you're right about that. Sometimes when someone's telling a story, sometimes it's best to just wait to hear the whole thing, because then when you hear the whole thing, sometimes the story makes sense in the end. Then there's times when it doesn't. And my wife is nodding her head like I'm really spitting some facts right now.
Then you have to go back and figure out, answer this, and this.
And what I've learned in that is that sometimes I have to be more detailed in my stories. And usually I'm not. Because usually I'm like, I'm sure she could get this. Yeah. Right? But I'm starting to realize that, no, you don't get it. And that's even sometimes the issues I have with work. It's just, I'm thinking people are going to pick it up as fast as I do.
They don't. They never do.
They never do.
People are not you.
Yeah. Oh. And I know I'm smart, you know. Sometimes I can be really silly. Yeah. And sometimes I could think that people are as astute as I am and attentive. That's another thing. Do you think that I'm really attentive?
I do.
Okay.
I think we're both attentive. I think that even with our differences, that's one of the few, we have quite a few, I'm not going to say few things, but I think us both being attentive is one of the things that makes our relationship work.
I agree.
Because we always know the other person cares. Even when it seems like they're in their own world, like ultimately we know the other person cares.
For sure. When do you feel, question for you, when do you feel most heard in our conversations?
I think I said this recently. Sundays eating somewhere.
Am I doing specific things?
I think it's just undistracted time.
Okay.
And I've talked about how like we get to go over the sermon and what we both heard from the sermon. I don't know. There's just something it's one of those moments where I really know God is real because he's speaking to both of us very differently sometimes, but we're both hearing him. It's just amazing to experience.
I agree. I think there's times when we communicate. In those times, as far as whatever we're trying to get, I guess what I'm trying to ask is when we are talking, when we are communicating, or when you're telling me something, do you prefer like solutions to what you're talking about, or just being heard when you vent?
I think it depends on the situation, but I'm always pretty vocal about that. Like, if I tell you a long work story, I'll be like, any comments, concerns, suggestions, like if I'm struggling with how to deal with something. And then there's other times where I'm just silent and I'm just like, yeah, that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So it just depends on the situation. But before we get too far in the questions, can you ask those same too for you? Like, when do you feel most heard and what do you want? Like solutions or just a listening ear?
That's to the second question. Whenever I'm talking about something at work, most of the time, I just want to be heard.
Okay.
Just want to be heard. Do you think that that's a man and a woman thing?
I've heard, men are fixers, so their natural instinct is to like hear a woman's story and then like offer a solution. However, I think that we're a bit opposite in that. I'm more likely to offer a solution than you are.
Really?
You offer solutions, but I feel like it's usually because I ask. But I do also typically ask for solutions and stuff. Like I want feedback almost all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's mainly because your job
but it's
makes it seem like you're a math brain person.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're also wanting to resolve things as well, fix things.
I think the only time I really want to be heard is like when I'm crying on you, and you do a great job on that. Like where I'm just crying and you just are there. That's perfect.
I try. The first question I asked you was...
when do I feel most heard or something like that?
Yeah. When do I feel most heard? I feel like for the longest time, verbally and non-verbally, I'm always telling you to just try to let things go easily. Or more easy. I feel the most heard when you're actually doing that. When you're actually letting things go.
How do you know when I'm letting something go?
I feel like I'm attentive. Whenever you're not bringing it up in a way.
You don't even know when I'm not bringing up.
I know when you're not.
You don't know what I'm not bringing up.
Trust me, I know. Maybe not all the time, but
Definitely not all the time. Definitely. There was something you did notice that I didn't like make a bigger deal of recently, and you said it. Dang it, what was it? Oh, my when you stepped in my slipper and broke it.
Oh yeah.
You break a lot of my stuff, but I have to let it go.
I don't really.
I let it go. Excellent at that.
Nonverbal communication.
Yes.
How often are we communicating nonverbally? And do you always pick up on my nonverbal cues?
I think we do a pretty good job with that. Usually at like family settings, if one of our family members says something and we're like, we gotta talk about that later. Yeah. We have a look.
For sure. What's a nonverbal sign I give when I'm upset?
When you're upset?
Yeah.
Silence.
Really?
Yep.
I would disagree. Well, I kind of agree.
You're
but
wrong.
I can't often. Upset is so strange for me, or being mad is strange for me because I try not to be that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the absence of that for me. Whenever I go silent, it's me not trying to be upset, but it's often understood. Yeah, it's me being upset, but it's me just trying to gather my thoughts.
Mm.
I'm processing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm processing. Any other things?
Being awkward.
Awkward.
We talked about that. Like how your texts are like, hi, just checking in, or I love you. I'm like, you don't do this when things are good.
What I do?
You don't. And you talk about how I'm, like you've said how when I'm upset, there's a specific way I answer the phone.
Hello.
And I think you have a very
single time.
similar way. You have a specific type of text when you're upset. I say hello to answer everybody's call.
Do you think body language is just as important as words?
For sure.
How can my body language be better when we are in conflict or disagreement?
You've actually done a really good job at this, but in our last few fights, you've like grabbed my hand or I grabbed your hand or something, even though we're like pissed off with each other. And that really helps. Connection, even though we feel distant.
Yeah, but it all sometimes it feels like you do not want that affection.
Sometimes I don't, but I appreciate it in the long run. I can still be upset in the moment, but appreciate it later.
So, what do you want my response to be when you don't want it? You still want me to give it?
Yep. I want you to let it go and move forward with the connection of holding my hand.
Okay.
Take your own dumb advice.
In that, can you actually let it go as well and be able to hold my hand?
I do hold your hand. I've never pushed your hand away.
You have not done that.
Thank you.
But as far as nonverbal communication,
You can feel that I don't want to hold your hand.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I'm upset.
So why make me do it if
I
you don't want
you.
it?
You reached out for my hand.
Why want that if you don't want me to do that?
Because I do want you to do it. I'm just still upset in that moment.
Do you see how you're complicated?
No.
Okay.
It's so simple. It could all be so simple.
It really could.
But you'd rather make it hard.
You could.
Loving you is like a battle. We both end up with scars.
Let's move on to the next thing because we're approaching 54 minutes.
That's crazy.
By the way. You know what? I'm gonna cut it early. We may have to make this a part 2.
You said the past couple were going to be part 2, so
I
we've
know.
gone on other topics.
We have.
We'll never come back.
But this one we got 3 more topics, and I'm
death
thinking,
one, we had like 5 more topics.
We did. No, the death one it's crazy saying that, but the death one, we really just had the topic about how the funeral itself went and how funny it could have been, or how funny it was, just with the preacher doing all that he did.
Deja dropping her phone in
the casket,
gravesite,
in the gravesite, and we could still probably do that one day. But for this one, for sure, next Sunday, maybe even before that, maybe we can knock out part 2 later this week.
This is the last podcast before your 5K. Any closing remarks? Most likely. I don't think we'll record before then.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Do I have anything to say? I'm ready. And I'll see y'all after. Well, I'll talk to y'all after it.
That'll be a good topic about like the process of that.
Yeah.
We're not going to do a part 2 of this. We're going to have so much happens in a week.
It does. We may have to make this twice a week thing. Who knows?
Oh, goodness.
But no, I don't really have anything to say, but I feel like I am ready to a certain extent, but I don't think I can go as fast as I want to. the temperature changed. I'm very good at running a 5K when it's colder outside. It's going to be hotter. I know that for a fact. So, and there's going to be more hills. So.
Sorry for not letting you know about that.
You did not.
I never ran it.
I'll let it go. I'll let it go.
Sure.
But we'll see. I'll have 3 more this year. If you can help me out with that.
For sure.
So we'll see. Hopefully there's a reward at the end of all of the 5Ks to make it worth the while.
From me?
From like eating out somewhere. Or just like getting a hotel somewhere. Yeah. Just to not have to drive back home right after it. Because I'm going to be the one that's driving. So
I can drive you to the 5K.
It's very sweet of you. We'll see. But anyway, that's today's podcast. I'm going to listen to this recording a little bit to see how echoey it is, because this may or may not be a thing anymore.
Probably should have done that before we recorded an hour, but
yeah, we'll see.
I'm probably gonna post it even if it's echoey. It's good.
Oh yeah, we're still gonna do it. That's the other thing I'm learning is that I can't wait till things are perfect to do it. Yeah,
that's a podcast.
That is a podcast, but it'll be a podcast 3 podcasts from now, so we don't.
I think there's actually quite a few things you're waiting on to be perfect till you do it.
I don't want to say like what, because then you're going.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So you may not want to say that.
We'll talk about that.
Stuff.
We'll talk about that off recording. But anyway, guys, we'll talk to you the next time, and sayonara.
Bye.